From the Classic 107 studios in downtown Winnipeg, 107 Live for Birchwood Jaguar, the art of performance.
And I'm in the studio this morning with Fred Redekop. He wears a few different hats. He is a piano tuner to the stars, we can call him. He's a mandolin player extraordinaire, and he's also a good buddy of mine from back in the days at McNally Robinson. So I'm happy to have him here in the studio with me this morning. Morning, Fred.
Morning, Michael. Thanks for having me in.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad we could finally arrange it. I know I've been talking to you for a while, since before Christmas, about coming on here, and finally we're able to arrange it in your busy, hectic schedule. So before we chat, why don't you play us a tune? What are you going to play right off the bat?
Sure. I'm going to play, these are pair tunes, and the first one is one that I wrote, and it's called Theme from the Broadleaf Channel, which is, my older brother Paul has a wicked sense of humor that I share, and we have a lot of laughs together sometimes, but he came up with this idea for a specialty channel called the Broadleaf Channel. So I thought, well, we need a theme for it, so this is that. And then the next one is just an old fiddle tune called Home Sweet Home.
Take it away. Thank you, Fred Redekop with the Broadleaf Channel. Sounds like a channel I might want to watch one day.
That's right. I don't think it'll ever actually come about, but it's a fun concept.
You never know.
You never know. That's right.
So, Fred, one of the things that you obviously do is play mandolin. You play it quite finely. The other thing that you do, and it's probably your main gig, main gig, you're a piano tuner.
Yes.
Now, how long have you been doing it, and how did you get into piano tuning?
Well, I've been tuning pianos for almost 40 years. I hate to admit that. And
almost 40 years?
I don't know where the time has gone, but I first took an interest about 40 years ago. And what it was I'd been playing in rock and roll bands in the 70s, and I played an electric piano, which, as opposed to an electronic piano, this was a Wurlitzer piano. It had an actual mechanism in it that hit these little wands, and you know, the rigors of life on the road and banging away at this thing, it needed service all the time. And I found that I enjoyed actually tinkering with it, and I thought that would be something that might be fun to do. This didn't really involve tuning at all. It was just, you know, tinkering with the insides of musical instruments. And then when I decided maybe that rock and roll career wasn't going to work out that well for me, I thought doing piano tuning would keep me somehow involved in music and also allow me not to ever have a real job. I'd never had a real job up to that point, and I still have never had what I would call a real job. I took something that I had an interest in and managed to make a living out of it, so I'm very grateful for that.
So how does one become a piano tuner?
Well, at the time, there were a handful of schools in North America. There were none in Canada. And so I ended up going to Cleveland, Ohio, and it was roughly a school year. And it was privately run in Cleveland, and I just moved down there and took the training, which was a good start. A course of that length doesn't really get you to a point where you know it all. Mm-hmm. It gets you to a point where you're really ready to start gathering experience and hopefully find a mentor and someone who will take the basic training you've had and develop it with you. And I was lucky enough, a local blind piano technician named Gary Vardy was a big help to me at that time. I took regular lessons with him when I came back from piano tuning school, and that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, and you obviously had some talent for it because you took what you learned and you took the lessons not only from the school but from
Mm-hmm.
Gary Vardy, and were able to do it on your own too.
The important thing is you have to want to and like sitting at a piano banging away on it all day. I get asked quite often, how can you do that all day? And I love doing it. All these years later, I look forward to going to work every day. It's something that I really, truly enjoy doing. And so in order to learn, you have to have a keen interest. I have a reasonable musical ear. I don't have perfect pitch. And what I have is a very highly trained ear. I know what to listen for and listen to. It's like a painter, photographer, they really see, they don't just look. And I really hear, I listen and I hear things that other people could hear, but they don't listen for it. And so a few notes, if I play a few notes on a piano, I can tell you a whole lot about the whole mechanism and exactly what condition it's in, because I'm just been lucky enough to get a lot of training over the years and experience. I'm
in the studio with Fred Redekop. He's a local mandolin player and also a piano tuner. You are a Yamaha representative, correct?
Not specifically. I'm a consultant for Yamaha Canada, so I do some traveling and work on high-profile pianos. Not so much tuning, but adjusting the regulation, the mechanics of the piano, and the tone. Adjusting the tone of piano. So, concert pianos in high-profile concert situations or in universities and institutions of various kinds. So I'm lucky enough to travel around the country a bit and see the music schools and the recital halls in various parts of the country and then work on some awfully nice pianos.
And here in Winnipeg, you work with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra.
Yes,
you work with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra as well. Which other Virtuosi Concert Series?
Virtuosi Concert.
So pretty much all of the main classical concert series.
Yeah,
here
classical. I don't do much of the jazz or pop
That's
stuff.
Jay.
Yeah, my friend Jay Taylor does a lot of that. Yeah. But the thing with I love working for the classical music organizations. First of all, I like all the people there, and they're very well-run organizations, so I can schedule my time, and it always works out. I'm not waiting around backstage. When I used to do rock and roll shows, and people would travel with electric pianos or regular pianos, they'd want you there at a certain time, and 3 hours later, the piano's still frozen on the truck somewhere, and it was just kind of a nuisance, But the symphony, I've been working for the symphony and these other organizations for probably 25 years or more, and it's been a very, very nice experience.
Well, share a couple of the stories then, some of the people you've come across. I mean, the last 25 years, the symphony and other concert series must have had some amazing musicians coming through. Any particular that stood out to you?
Yes, there's been many, and I have to say that I have almost never had a person that I didn't like.
No divas? No divas at the piano.
No, sometimes maybe divas, but people that I've gotten along. I've always gotten along well with the artists that I've worked for. And, a lot of them I don't meet because I come in and prepare the piano before the first rehearsal. Then they come in and play, and if there's no problem, I keep my fingers crossed there's not, but if nothing is wrong, then I'll come in before the performance and touch up and tune the piano again. And often our paths don't cross. Some players are just practice an awful lot, and they'll be at the hall playing for hours and hours when they're not doing their formal rehearsals with the orchestra, and some don't seem to be there as much. So I'll introduce myself and talk about the piano with people quite often, and some require a lot more maintenance than others. Some are very
particular.
Very particular. I remember there was one man who he was an incredibly wonderful player, but I had to sit with him pretty much all the time because just in case. And remember he had us put rope around the wheels of the piano because he played so forcefully. The piano had a tendency to move away from him, and so we had to put these barriers around the wheels so that it wouldn't move. And it was an interesting experience. And he controlled and played the piano like I don't know if I've ever seen anyone up close, at least, just pull so much character and sound out of a piano.
Well, drop some names. Let's hear you drop some names.
That was Grigory Sokolov.
Grigory Sokolov. Well, he's sort of really come back onto the concert scene.
He has.
Yeah.
This was maybe 10 years ago or something. I can't remember when he was here. But he was outstanding, and he controlled the piano in a way I've never, ever witnessed up close before. But I have to say there's lots of wonderful pianists, too. I didn't know who he was, actually, when he came, and he was amazing.
So was there one... If you were to pick out one or two stars in particular that you had the thrill of meeting, could you think of a couple?
Victor Borge.
Oh, wow. Okay. Victor Borge, yeah.
Yeah, I tuned for him a couple of times at the concert hall, obviously quite a while ago. He was pretty elderly then already, but it was, I was a big fan of his when I was a kid. I just thought he was hilarious, and he was such a good piano player. So I was thrilled. And as I was tuning the piano, of course, it was the piano that belongs to the hall. He doesn't travel with the piano. But I was sitting on his bench, and then halfway through, I had to open up the bench, and I looked, and sure enough, there were the seat belts. That was I remember his routine about putting on the seat belt when, to stay on the bench. So anyway, yeah, that was a kick. And then, there's a lot of wonderful Canadian pianists that I've had the privilege of meeting and working with over the years, and they've all been wonderful. One of the more memorable ones, I guess, was when it was called Piano 6, and they did a recital with the symphony. This is quite a few years ago now, and it was just what a lot of work it was. 6 grand pianos tuned in unison, and they all got together here and had to rehearse. They have such busy schedules. They had to find time to rehearse, so they're rehearsing all the time, which meant that I would go in at 10 o'clock at night after they finished and stay till 3 or 4, and then I would come in the morning on another day at like 3 or 4 in the morning and then try to get everything done before they showed up. So it was a tremendous amount of work, but it was Andre Laplante, Angela Chen, Angela Hewitt, Janina Fialkowska, I'm going to forget somebody, Andre Laplante, and Marc-Andre Hamelin.
Wow.
So, yeah, wow. That was quite a night. And when all 6 of them played together, that was a sound.
The walls were shaking.
Yeah, and they were just so wonderful. They all are wonderful, and I've tuned for all those people and many more, many times over the years. And I remember one occasion, the Parker brothers, Jamie Parker and John Kimura Parker, 2 of the nicest pianists that I've had the privilege of spending time with. And I remember Jackie Parker, John Kimura Parker, asked that the piano, he wanted a little more brightness out of a particular area of the piano. So I worked on it, and you don't want to overdo things like that. You need to keep the piano within a certain average range so that it's appropriate for lots of different types of music. But I brighten up a little bit of the piano in a certain area, and so I didn't go to that concert. I was at home that evening, and my wife and I were just watching television, and the phone rang just after 10 o'clock, and it was Jackie Parker. And he he was phoning after I could hear the whole hubbub backstage, and he took the time to call me at the end of the concert to thank me for the work that I'd done on the piano. And I thought, wow, that was very special to
Classy.
me. Yes, very. Yeah, and Jamie Parker's the same. I've tuned pianos for him for he's played here in different contexts many times, and he's just a terrific guy and a wonderful player. So, and I'm picking out a handful of people out of many.
Well,
many
obviously
here.
over 25 years. I mean,
I've had many wonderful experiences, and got to stand at the edge of the keyboard, listening to them play, try out pianos, and hearing these world-class players just play from up close.
Well, let's take it back to the mandolin for a second.
Sure.
And let's have one more tune before we wrap up. Fred Redekop is in the studio. We've been chatting about his piano tuning days, but he also turns to the mandolin from time to time to have some fun. So what do you got for us next, Fred?
This is something called Natasha's Waltz by Norman Blake.
There's Fred Redekop on the mandolin. Fred, thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me in, Michael.
It's a pleasure. Next time you're in, we'll chat about your mandolin days. I know we focus mostly on the piano. We'll focus on the mandolin next time we're in.
Sure, I love it.
Again, thank you again for coming in. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
107 Live is Classic 107's intimate concert series, brought to you by Birchwood Jaguar, the art of performance.